To my loving son, Michael, I leave everything. To my wife, Elizabeth, I leave an envelope containing a single key." Those words, spoken by Mr. Thornton in his measured attorney's voice, might as well have been a cannon blast in that mahogany-paneled office. I sat there, 74 years old, and wearing the black dress I'd bought specifically for burying my husband of 47 years, and I felt the world tilt sideways. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to stay with me. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It warms this old heart to know where my words travel. Michael's face, my son's face, did something I'll never forget. It went from practiced solemnity to barely suppressed triumph in the space of a heartbeat. Everything. The word hung in the air like smoke. The antique shop we'd built from nothing, the properties, the investments Harold had made with such careful precision over nearly 5 decades. Everything. And me, I got a key. "Mother, I'm sure there's more," Michael said, his voice dripping with the kind of false sympathy that made my teeth ache. "Perhaps Dad left instructions somewhere else." Mr. Thornton cleared his throat uncomfortably. He'd been Harold's lawyer for 30 years, had been to our house for countless dinners, knew our family intimately. "That's the extent of the will, Mrs. Bennet. Your husband was quite specific." He handed me a small envelope, cream-colored and expensive, with my name written in Harold's distinctive script. I took it with trembling fingers, aware of Michael's eyes boring into me, calculating. His wife Jessica sat beside him, her perfectly manicured hand on his arm, her expression one of practiced concern. But I saw the gleam in her eyes. The same gleam I'd seen when they'd suggested, 6 months ago, that Harold and I should consider selling the house and moving into something more manageable. A retirement community, they'd called it. I'd called it what it was, a way to get us out of the house they wanted for themselves. "Well," Jessica said, standing and smoothing her designer skirt, "this must be very difficult for you, Elizabeth. Perhaps you should come stay with us for a few days while you sort things out." The offer sounded generous. It wasn't. I could see it in the way she exchanged glances with Michael. They wanted to know what was in that envelope, wanted to control whatever came next. "I'll be fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I have arrangements to make." That night, alone in the house that suddenly felt too large and too empty, I opened Harold's envelope. Inside was a single key, brass and old-fashioned, attached to a tag that read simply, "Storage Unit 247, Florence Station." And beneath that, in Harold's handwriting, "Go alone, trust no one, remember Venice." Remember Venice. My breath caught. Venice had been our honeymoon, 47 years ago, when we'd been young and poor and so desperately in love that we'd stayed in a pension that barely qualified as a hotel. Harold had promised me then that one day, when we'd made our fortune, we'd return to Italy and do it properly. We never had. There was always the business, always something more important, always tomorrow. Except tomorrow had run out for Harold, and now I sat in our bedroom with a mysterious key and a memory. The next morning, Michael arrived before breakfast, letting himself in with his key. Our key. Except I suppose it was his key now, wasn't it? "Mother, we need to talk about the house," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. Jessica trailed behind him, already measuring the rooms with her eyes. "What about it?" I asked, though I knew exactly what was coming. "Well, it's mine now, ours." He gestured to include Jessica. "And honestly, Mom, this place is way too big for you anyway. Jessica and I have been thinking we could renovate, really make it something special. Modern. But that means you'd need to find somewhere else to live." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and wondered when he'd become this stranger. This man who'd inherited his father's sharp business mind, but none of his kindness. "How thoughtful of you to consider my welfare," I said dryly. "We're not throwing you out," Jessica said quickly, though that's exactly what they were doing. "We're just being practical. There are some lovely retirement communities nearby. We've already made some inquiries." Of course they had. "I need a few days," I said, "to pack my things, to say goodbye." Michael's relief was palpable. "Of course, take a week. We're not monsters, Mom." Weren't they? After they left, I sat in Harold's study, the key heavy in my pocket. Florence Station was 3 hours away by train. Storage Unit 247. What had Harold hidden from me? From everyone. I went the next day, telling no one. The station was in an old part of the city, the kind of neighborhood that had seen better days. The storage facility was clean but worn, run by an elderly man with kind eyes who barely glanced at my key before pointing me toward the back. Unit 247 was larger than I expected, and when I opened it, I found myself staring at something impossible. Paintings. Dozens of them carefully wrapped and catalogued. I recognized some immediately. Harold had always loved art, had dragged me to galleries in our early years together. But these weren't reproductions or prints. These were originals. Small masters mostly, but valuable ones, very valuable ones. And there, sitting on top of a wooden crate, was another envelope with my name. My dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and our son has shown his true colors. I've known for 2 years what Michael was planning. I overheard him and Jessica discussing your future, their future, one evening when they thought I was sleeping after my surgery. They spoke of you like you were a burden to be managed, a problem to be solved. They've been researching how to have you declared incompetent, Elizabeth, how to take control of your assets for your own good. I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear that the son we raised, the boy we gave everything to, had become someone who would warehouse his own mother the moment I was gone. So I set a trap, a test. The will Michael heard is real, legally binding. He inherits the business, the house, the visible assets, about $4 million worth. To a man like Michael, it probably seems like winning the lottery. But what he doesn't know, what no one knows except my lawyer in Florence, Giuseppe Castellani, is that I've been collecting for 30 years. Buying art, not as investments, but as a legacy. For you, for the woman who stood beside me through everything, who sacrificed her own dreams so I could build mine, who never once complained when I worked late or traveled for business or made decisions without consulting you. This storage unit contains approximately $40 million worth of art, Elizabeth. Authenticated, documented. Completely legal. It's yours, every single piece. But more than that, I've arranged something else. Giuseppe has the details. There's an apartment in Florence, small but beautiful, overlooking the Arno. It's been waiting for you for 2 years, since Venice. I never forgot my promise, my love. I just wanted to make sure you'd be free to accept it. As for Michael, the choice is yours. You can let him keep his inheritance and simply disappear into your new life. Or you can show him that betrayal has consequences. Giuseppe has a second will prepared, one that gives Michael exactly what he deserves. Nothing but a chance to learn who he should have been. The decision is yours, Elizabeth. But whichever path you choose, know this. You gave me 47 years of devotion, love, and partnership. This is my way of giving you the freedom you've earned. Forever yours, Harold. P.S. Go to Florence. Have an espresso in Piazza della Signoria. Buy something beautiful and impractical. Start living for yourself for once. I sat on the concrete floor of that storage unit and cried. Not delicate tears, but great heaving sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside me. For Harold, who'd known and planned and protected me even in death. For the years we'd worked so hard we forgot to enjoy what we were building. For the son I'd raised who'd become someone I barely recognized. And for myself, for the woman I'd been and the woman I might still become. Giuseppe Castellani turned out to be a distinguished gentleman in his 60s with silver hair and a warm smile. His office in Florence was exactly what I'd imagined. Old-world elegance, leather-bound books, and windows overlooking terracotta rooftops. Mrs. Bennet, he said, rising to greet me. Harold spoke of you often. He was very proud of you, you know, not for standing beside him, but for being strong enough to stand on your own once he was gone. We spent the afternoon going through everything. The art collection, meticulously documented. The apartment, which was even more beautiful than Harold had described, all warm wood and tall windows, and a balcony where you could watch the sunset paint the Duomo gold. Investment accounts I'd never known existed. Business interests in Europe that Harold had built quietly over decades. Your husband's total estate. Giuseppe said carefully. Exclusive of what was left to your son, amounts to approximately $58 million. The number was incomprehensible. We'd been comfortable, certainly, but this was wealth beyond anything I'd imagined. And Michael has no idea any of this exists. The storage unit is in a company name. The Florence properties are owned through a trust. Your son believes he inherited everything of value. Giuseppe's expression grew serious. Harold also prepared evidence of your son's plans, of the nursing home inquiries, the incompetency proceedings he was researching, all documented, all legally obtained. It's yours to do with as you wish. I thought about Michael's face when he heard the will, the barely concealed satisfaction, the immediate plans to evict me from my own home. What would the second will do? I asked. It would revoke everything. The business would be sold, proceeds to charity. The house would be donated to a foundation. Michael would receive exactly what Harold felt he deserved, a one-way plane ticket and the chance to build a life through his own efforts rather than his father's. That night, I stood on the balcony of my Florence apartment, watching the city lights reflect off the Arno, and I called my son. Mom, Michael sounded surprised. Where are you? I've been trying to reach you. We need to start clearing out the house. The contractors are scheduled for next week. I'm in Florence, Michael. Florence? What are you doing in Florence? Suspicion crept into his voice. Following your father's final instructions. Tell me something, son. When exactly were you planning to have me declared incompetent? The silence, on the other end of the line, was deafening. I don't know what you're talking about, he said finally, but his voice had changed. Gone was the false sympathy, replaced by wariness. The nursing home inquiries, the lawyer consultations about guardianship, the conversations you had with Jessica about controlling my assets for my own good. I kept my voice calm, matter of fact. Your father knew, Michael. He knew everything. Mom, if Dad said something before he died, he was confused, the medication. He was perfectly lucid. He was also very thorough. There are recordings, Michael, documents, evidence of every step you planned to take to warehouse me the moment your father was cold in the ground. Another long silence. I could practically hear him recalculating, trying to figure out what this meant. What do you want? He asked finally, and the bluntness of it, the absence of any denial or apology, told me everything I needed to know about who my son had become. I want you to understand something. The will you heard wasn't your father's only will. It was a test to see if you'd show any love, any basic decency, toward the woman who gave birth to you, raised you, sacrificed for you. And I failed. His voice was cold now, defensive. Spectacularly. You had me evicted from my home within 24 hours of your father's funeral, Michael. You started renovations designed to destroy 47 years of memories. You told me, your own mother, to find somewhere else to live permanently. The house is mine now. I can do what I want with it. Yes, I agreed. It is. About $2 million worth of house and business assets. Congratulations. What do you mean about $2 million? I mean that your father's visible estate, the one you inherited, represents approximately 4% of his actual wealth. I let that sink in. The rest of it, Michael, the real fortune he built, that was never meant for you. I heard Jessica's voice in the background, sharp and demanding. Michael must have put his hand over the phone, but I could still hear them arguing. How much? He asked when he came back on the line. Enough that I'll never worry about money again. Enough that I can live anywhere I want, do anything I want, for the rest of my life. Your father made sure of that. That's not fair. I'm his son. I worked in that business. For 5 years, Michael, at an inflated salary, in a position you were barely qualified for. Your father gave you every advantage, every opportunity. And you repaid him by planning to lock away the woman he loved the moment he couldn't protect her anymore. So what now? You're just going to keep everything out of spite. And there it was, still thinking about money, still seeing this as a transaction, a negotiation. Not once had he apologized. Not once had he shown any remorse for what he'd planned. No, I said quietly. I'm going to keep everything because your father wanted me to have it. Because I earned it through 47 years of partnership and love. And because you've proven beyond any doubt that you don't deserve it. We'll fight this, Michael said, anger finally breaking through. We'll contest the will, you can't just. Your father anticipated that too. Contest the will, Michael, and you lose everything. The house, the business, all of it gets donated to charity. Win or lose your lawsuit, you'll end up with exactly nothing except legal bills you can't afford. Jessica was shouting now in the background. I could picture them in the house, my house, surrounded by boxes and renovation plans, watching their imagined fortune evaporate. There is another option, I said. Your father prepared it. It's not about the money, Michael. You can keep your inheritance such as it is. But if you want any possibility of a relationship with me, if you want your children to know their grandmother, then you need to take responsibility for what you planned. Real responsibility. Written, documented, honest acknowledgement of what you did and why it was wrong. And if I do that, I get what? A cut of the Florence money. My heart broke a little more, still transactional, still about what he could get. You get the chance to be my son again. Not my keeper, not my guardian, not the person who manages me like a problem to be solved. My son, the boy I raised to be better than this. That's it, that's all you're offering. That's everything I'm offering, Michael. And if you can't see the value in it, then your father was right about you. I hung up before he could respond. 3 months have passed since that conversation. I'm still in Florence, living in an apartment that catches the morning sun just right and has a balcony where I drink espresso and watch the city wake up. I've started taking art classes, something I always wanted to do but never had time for. I've made friends with the woman who runs the cafe downstairs and the elderly couple who live next door and teach me Italian swear words that make them laugh. Michael sent a letter last week. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter. In it, he tried to explain himself, the pressure he felt, the fear of not being successful enough, the way Jessica pushed him to secure their future. He admitted he'd been wrong, that he'd lost sight of what mattered. I don't know if I believe him yet. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal quickly or easily. But it's a start, more than I expected if I'm honest. Jessica filed for divorce 2 weeks ago, apparently unable to accept living on just $2 million. Michael sounds lost in his letters now, like he's finally waking up to the life he built and realizing it wasn't what he wanted after all. The business is struggling without Harold's steady hand, though Michael is learning. The hard way, but learning nonetheless. He asked if I'd consider advising him, sharing some of Harold's strategies. I haven't decided yet. As for me, I'm learning too. Learning that I'm stronger than I knew. Learning that it's never too late to start over. Learning that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the truth about who they've become and the chance to choose who they'll be next. Giuseppe has become a good friend. He takes me to his favorite restaurants, introduces me to people, helps me navigate this new life. He's teaching me about art, about investments, about all the things Harold handled that I never understood. Turns out I'm quite good at it when I pay attention. Yesterday, I bought a painting from a young artist in Santo Spirito. Nothing expensive or famous, just a simple watercolor of the Ponte Vecchio at sunset. It made me happy, and for the first time in my life, that was reason enough. Harold was right. I needed to be free, free of obligation, free of being managed, free of living my life according to what everyone else needed from me. His test, cruel as it seemed, gave me that freedom. It showed me exactly who my son had become, but more importantly, it showed me who I could still be. I'm 74 years old. My husband is gone. My son betrayed me in ways I never imagined possible. And yet, standing on my balcony as the sun sets over Florence, watching the Duomo turn gold in the evening light, I find myself thinking that maybe, just maybe, the best years of my life are still ahead of me. After all, I have time now. Time to travel, to learn, to grow, to become the person I might have been if I hadn't spent 47 years being what everyone else needed. And I have Harold's voice in my head, reading that last line of his letter. Start living for yourself for once. So I am, my love. I finally am. This story is dedicated to everyone who has ever felt overlooked, managed, or taken for granted. It's never too late to reclaim your life. It's never too late to demand better. And it's never too late to discover that you're stronger than you ever imagined. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.